Welcome to the workshop for Wednesday, October 23rd. Quorum is present, so Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Basine?
Here.
Clanton?
Present.
Gabriel? Jordan? And Buffalo.
Here. We're going to move on to 2.01, Dr. Birdsong.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, administration. Good afternoon again. This afternoon, the administration is prepared to share an update related to goal number 2, which involves the reading levels or proficiency reading levels of our third grade students. And so we have an update for you. We were able to administer our VALS assessment successfully during the fall, and so we have some updates to share with you. So without further ado, Dr. Pohl, please.
Good afternoon. I hit a mouse button inadvertently, so Ms. Tanner is bringing the document back up for me. Sorry about that. But as she's doing that, good afternoon, Madam Chair Buffalo, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, and Dr. Birdsong. To start this afternoon, we'll be reviewing both measures for Goal 2. However, Measure 2.1 is going to be new for us, as we talked about before. As you may recall, the VDOE sunsetted PALS and started VALS, so we're going to be looking at some different data. So let me just make this so maybe we can all read it a little bit better. So as you recall, the Goal 2 is the percentage of students reading on or above grade level by the end of third grade as measured by the reading SOL tests. And we want it to increase from 45% during the 2021 school year to at least 75% during the 26-27 school year. An interim measure 2.1 rather is what we're working on updating through the year. Due to the new assessment for early literacy, the Virginia Language and Literacy Screening System, or VALS, data will need to be reviewed during the 24-25 school year, really to establish the interim measures for this goal, as everything is brand new on this assessment. So just a little bit about the data that we did pull. 32.3% of students in first grade are at a low risk of not reading on grade level. So the VALS assessment has 3 areas: low risk, moderate risk, and high risk, where PALS just had identified or not identified. And then 39.9% of first grade should be at high risk. It has identified still, but that should be at high risk. And then 31.6% of students in second grade are at a low risk of not reading on grade level, while 36% are high risk of not reading on grade level. So a couple things, that the report, and again, these are all brand new reports to us as well, that are showing us our first grade students scored highest in the areas of identifying letter names, phoneme blending, vocabulary fluency, and rapid automized naming. Second grade students scored highest in letter names, phoneme blending, letter sounds, oral fluency passages, nonsense sentences, and rapid automized naming. And what was not going well based on the data is first grade students scored the lowest in letter sounds, real world decoding, pseudo word decoding, and expressive comprehension, while second grade students scored the lowest in phenome segmenting, pseudo word decoding, real word decoding, passage retell, and expressive comprehensive. So based on the data and the work that we're doing, some next steps to improve our data on the VALS assessment and for our early literacy are the continued professional development for teachers and building level administrators on the use of the VALS assessment data, professional development for early literacy tutors on VALS data and corresponding supports for students identified as high risk. So really mapping out those supports for the areas where we saw the lower score ranges. Using the VALS assessment data for small group tutoring with our early literacy tutors specifically on that. Develop, implement, and monitor student reading plans with targeted interventions that outline clear methods for monitoring and evaluating student progress. If you recall, in the July retreat, when Ms. Nash and Mr. Clark presented on the Virginia Literacy Act, one of the things we talked about were the new reading plans to be put into place. Reading plans for all students K through 3 who scored in the high risk area band of the VALS assessment are required to have literacy plans. So those are being put into action now based on the fall data. Continue to monitor master schedules and intervention schedules to ensure that interventions complement core literacy instruction. Continue professional development for intervention providers, which includes special education teachers, paraprofessionals, teachers, and tutors, on evidence-based literacy interventions, which include for us the SIPS and Lexia Core 5, which are both on the Virginia Literacy Act approved list as well. Monthly professional development sessions for teachers on evidence-based literacy strategies and high-quality instructional materials. This is in partnership with the VDOE. And then to continue to provide families with literacy strategies, resources, and materials for home support. So that's what I had to share with you this evening on the VALS, which is, again, a new assessment for us.
All right, school board members, you heard the report. Are there any questions? Ms. Bassini.
Thank you for the report. I'm not sure, I was looking on the VDOE's website. Can you speak a little bit about the correlation of the VALS assessment with the SOL? Like if they've already done some correlation studies looking at it, and that's why they chose this to replace the PALS?
Yeah, there is no correlation done because this is the first year for VALS. They chose to replace this with VALS because it's more focused on the science of reading.
Okay.
PALS has been in place for about 20 years now, so it was due for an update. And the VALS assessment has about 15, 16 different areas that it focuses on, where the PALS wasn't quite that extensive.
Okay. So as we move forward with this, as we're using the VALS in our interims, we'll be looking very closely at how it does correlate with the SOL, since that is our overarching goal, correct?
So we will, and PALS even really never had the correlation with PALS and SOL was with reading comprehension and phonemic awareness, which is important to get to be able to read, period. So without that level of understanding and the growth in this, because this is pre-reading in a lot of instances, really, we wouldn't even be able to get to the third grade reading assessment. So knowing even at a more in-depth level of where students have higher needs, we're able to focus better on that. So interim measure to measure, what we're going to be looking at is when I, on the report where it's like where we're not doing well, is looking at data points there to see, did we see growth there? Because that's where we're trying to focus now, and where student reading plans should be focused on those deficits.
Okay, thank you. So could I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So among those that are at high risk of that nearly 40%, are there certain groups that you're finding are struggling more than others, and what are those groups?
You know, it's still, our students with special needs, we still have a struggle with, for sure. The other categories, there was not one subgroup over the others that really stood out at this time.
And no particular schools that have like a greater percentage of?
There were, I mean, we have some schools where the percentages are higher, and in those schools, we do have more supports. We have more literacy tutors in place, and we provide more supports and structure as well. And then the, additional programs with some one-on-one that we provide at that level as well.
And I'll let, so others can ask questions, but I have a couple more, but I can come back to.
Anyone else? Mr. Clanton?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to, I know this isn't new, it's replacing the PALS, but I guess, so how is this still fitting, well, how is this fitting into the overall picture as we address literacy? I know we talked about some things at the last work session, but I guess, how will this help us move the needle in making sure that our kids can be proficient by third grade?
Sure. So we've, as you guys know, with the PALS data we presented, we've been pretty solidly moving that data forward, and this will help us continue that. It breaks down the reading structure even further and gives us more of a focus point than what PALS did for each student on specific deficits and needs, so that'll help us really target them sooner with this data.
And so I guess the follow-up to that one is there anything, I know we have our next steps. Does this, especially these are the lower grades, I know we're doing the dish division, well, I know we have tutoring and so forth there, but are we aggressively going after the reading buddies or anything like that, particularly in these younger groups here?
So, I mean, we use our community partners for supports in that. A lot of schools, we use older grade level students to come down as well. But what's, I think, most important is the continued support for the early literacy tutors. We had called them PALS tutors for a year, but there's no more PALS. So early literacy tutors, I think that has really been a saving grace for all of our schools and our teachers and our reading specialists, because now reading specialists also have to focus on all the literacy or the reading plans for students. So the tutors are really focusing on the necessary instruction for the students as well.
And just my last one, following up to that one, have we identified any potential gaps, resource-wise? I know we have these tutors and so forth. Are there any potential gaps that are there that will prevent us from seeing where we need to be by the end of this year?
We can always use more tutors in the future. I mean, but that comes down to budgeting.
Okay.
And placement. That really is an area of high use. Our tutors are with one-on-one or small groups all day long in the schools where they are. So based on where we're falling now, again, with starting to know our numbers of students who have reading plans and have required tutoring requirements, we'll start to see more of where that's going to fall, and we'll have a better idea of that data in the coming months.
Appreciate that.
The more we can provide that individualized instruction for our students, the better.
Correct.
So the tutoring, we really believe, will make a significant difference.
And so the tutors we have, is full-time, part-time?
Part-time.
These are part-time individuals that come in. And just, I guess, as a rough, about how many of these tutors do we have?
We have 82 early literacy tutors spread across all elementary schools. And the tutors work up to 30 hours a week. And they are 1 day a month. They're in professional development with Ms. Nash, focused on the science of reading and curriculum and resources.
So my final one, I know I said this is my final one, but this is good because we're at the board level budget. And if we aggressively go after some things, so what would be the ideal? Because at the end of the day, it's about making sure that we meet the goal. So if we've got 80 so far and we say we need more, what would be the ideal number?
I'll have to research it based off
Research
this
more.
data to know,
Okay.
to know where we are with how many students are in need of the tutoring.
All right. So I'm hearing tutors. We can get more tutors, more individualized.
Instruction through tutoring.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, I was seeing one of the next step is to provide families with literacy strategies, resources, and materials for home support. What does that look like?
So we do have a full family section on our literacy plan website. And Dr. Birdsong, every month on the monthly newsletter, we put a plug in there for literacy as well that links into the website. Like the Lexia provides different at-home learning materials for students as well, and different curricular materials that we want to have them to have easy access to. At the elementary schools, especially Title I elementary schools, our family engagement specialists and Title I teachers will do reading nights for parents to make sure that they have materials they need and they know how to use the materials as well.
The report that comes on?
Which one? The Lex? Yeah. There's a huge VALS report with a great deal of data on it too that says where your students are and gives what supports are needed, what could you do as well. So all of that we're making sure parents have their hands on.
It was nice that came out before Parent-Teacher Conference Day. So that way, if parents had questions about it, and it's a little different, it's, education speak, the way that the report is done. But if parents had questions about it, they could come and speak with their teachers, so that was great that you guys did it.
And teachers had it on hand as well if the parents didn't have it.
Jordan?
Yeah, go back to the report itself. So with the vowels and the bands, we have on our projected report, low and high risk. Vowels.
So sorry, go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
So if I'm understanding this correct, it's like for first grade, we have between the first grade low risk and the first grade high risk, they represent what, 72%?
So there's a moderate risk in the middle as well.
So can you just explain again why we don't show, or should we be showing all three? I mean, what's the better sense of using the vowels and the bands, how that's?
So I think the low risk are showing us our students that are at or above grade level in general. And then our moderate risk are the ones that are at, or, we need to monitor them and make sure that they stay growing how they're growing. But the high risk are where we have to focus. And those are the ones that are imperative that we move those students up into and that's why reading plans are required for them. We create a more intense focus, and our high-risk students are also the ones that have to receive services with the tutoring and additional reading services. Moderate and low do not.
So is part of the strategy to obviously provide what we have to provide to the high risk? Does that necessarily mean we're not doing it for the others, or we are doing something for the others?
We're doing something for everybody who needs it when they may need it.
Okay.
But high risk, it's all the time. It's a part of your schedule, it's a part of your daily routine. But like a low risk or moderate risk, if the teacher sees, wait, you're not comprehending what we're getting, I want to make sure you have some extra time, then we can also fit that in. But the high risk, we're making sure those students are a part of this, and it's a part of their reading plans.
So then when we get to the winter piece of the cycle, I was trying to understand, there was a chart I think I got from UVA, and it was saying that I think for high risk, everybody was required to take it again, but for others, it may not be the case. Can you explain, when we see the winter data, who would be represented in that winter data?
So we're going to do everything we can to have everybody assess, but we need to look and see at the assessment weights. The high-risk students have to assess.
Okay,
But we want to have the data point for all of our students
okay.
as we go through, mainly because we just want to be able to, we want to learn the data the best we can learn the data so that we can use it the best that we can use it for our students.
So, but as of right now, that's a to be determined? Okay. So then if we aren't successful in being able to test everyone, then is it the case in the winter data, at minimum, we will be retesting everybody who's in the high-risk area?
And then we'll focus on those students' data points from before. So I'll like weed those out, those data points from our high risk, to see where we saw movement, if that's all we're able to test.
I am not, on the second one, that's all high risk at the bottom, right?
Correct. And yeah, it's not supposed to be identified, it's supposed to be high risk. That was my error there.
Yeah.
You're
But
right.
right now, everything that's represented first and second grade, that's all high risk.
Correct.
So then, at least on that second chart, for the winter data, it would still be all high risk.
Correct. And we want to see that number go down no matter
Right.
what.
But the above chart is the one that we aren't sure what that would reflect based upon who gets tested.
Correct.
And then in the spring data, is it the same that everyone who was high risk in the fall gets tested in the spring?
Spring data, everybody's supposed to test.
So everybody on both ends?
Correct. Because we want to have that data for them as they're going into the next grade level.
So it's possible then for the low risk, we may have two data points, but for the high risk, we know we'll have three.
Yes, sir.
And then the folks in the middle are similar to the folks that are in the low risk category? Okay. Thank you for that. And then the other thing I was trying to figure out, I think you mentioned in response to Ms. Bassine's question, I was going back and looking, I was trying to figure out the transition from the PALs to the vowels in connection with what we're monitoring. So ultimately, we were saying before that the PALs in some respects would be predictive of the SOL goal.
Of reading success.
Well, for our chart,
Get right,
it
correct.
was, we were monitoring those because we felt that the performance for the third grade PALs would give us a good indicator.
We monitor the first and second grade PALs.
I'm
and
sorry, the
grade
first,
star.
right, I'm sorry,
Correct,
I'm on the
right.
second report.
That's all right.
That the PALs would give us a sense of how the students
Correct.
would do
Leading into third grade.
leading into third grade. And so just coming off of, what we saw in June, July, and so forth, do you think is that fair? I mean, did it indicate to us what it thought it would indicate to us?
I do think so. And I think, we've seen the growth in coming into, so last year, remember the end of the year last year with our PALS data, we saw a good amount of growth. And when we go into our next data chart, you're going to see that translate right to the STAR assessment. And I'm really excited to get to the next chart because it's really good data. I mean, I do think, Mr. Jordan, we are seeing where we're seeing that growth. And even last spring when we talked about it, we were like, when are we going to see this in third grade? And this is our current third graders are our first group of non-COVID kids. Our first group of students that have been here with all of the interventions that we put in place, with all of the early literacy interventions, all the new curriculum, everything else we've been putting in place. And this fall's group, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, outscored
Yeah, I
the
saw that.
spring score
Right.
of last year's third graders.
Right, I saw that. Right.
So I do think we're starting to see this translate because we've seen that PALS data creep up, and now we're starting to see it translate to third grade STAR data.
So and I know you may not have it in front of you, but when we had the PALS 2.1 before, and we were doing spring to spring, we had, I can read my own chart right. So we were at 67.1, I think, for first grade. Spring of last year, and then we were at 60, so we saw, if I'm reading it correctly, we were at, I guess, about 7 points. That's part of that growth you're referring to. And then similarly to second grade. So then we closed the book on that, we pick up the vowels, and it was like 15, some number of school divisions that started PALS.
There are some pilot school
Yeah.
divisions that started.
Is there any sense of how they performed in relationship to?
Nothing that's been published. We have, Virginia Beach was one of the pilot divisions, and we've spoken with them about it, more about like how are you looking at the reports, how are you matching to curricular, items and everything like that, but not enough data to really know what it's going to look like for us through the year. And I worked with our ARA folks, Greg Williams and Kristen McGarity, to really look at what PALS assessed and what VALS assessed to see if there's anything I could say to say any kind of alignment that is so far different that there's just no alignment.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Ms. Basine?
Yeah, if I could continue to ask a couple questions. So as you were responding to Mr. Jordan's questions, you talked about the high, and I'm just going to summarize what I think I heard, and you just let me know if I've missed anything. So the high-risk students every high-risk student has a tutor, and
Yeah, every high-risk student has defined tutoring time with one of the
If-
early literacy
okay.
tutors, correct?
has defined time and has a reading plan.
Correct. If they don't, they're in process right now of doing it, because these are fresh scores, so they're in the process of writing all the reading plans right now.
Okay, and are there any other strategies that are specific toward the high-risk group that are being implemented?
So it's really connecting to what we have in use already. So it's connecting, on one of their areas of the 16 different strands where we get scores back. What in the curriculum are we connecting to and offering more support? And what is the tutor doing with the SIPS curriculum as well to offer more support so we can be more directed where their deficiencies are?
Okay. Okay, and I asked that because, going back to also just how our reports are reflecting, the strategies as we monitor the use of VALs and the progress the students are making through VALs, I would like to see, okay, under what's going well, like what strategies are working well? How are these strategies that are in place working for our students and how we know that they're making progress using those strategies? And then, that kind of connects to in the next steps that are indicated, how we know that these next steps are resulting in progress for our students. So, I'd like to see that again, in the monitoring report. I think that was it for me for right now.
Is there anyone else for this report? No? Go.
All right.
Is this the part you're excited about?
I am. I've been telling Dr. Birdsong for a while. I'm not ever overly excited to come present at the board. I don't know if it's obvious or not, but this is really good stuff. And I love presenting you guys the data and everything else, but this is one of those ones where like, this is where we're seeing the labor of our teachers, the labor of everything that's gone in place over the past 3 years starting to come to fruition. So with that being said, let me just flip to make sure I don't miss any of the exciting stuff I want to make sure to highlight. So again, Goal 2 is focused on the grade 3 reading, and 2.2 is based off of STAR's third grade results, and based off what was created when this was first put into place. The goal for the 24-25 school year was to get to a level of 67% proficient. That's at or above or on watch for the third grade STAR reading test. So with that being said, our third grade STAR proficiency rate is 11.5 points higher than last fall, with 62.1% of our students showing proficiency on the STAR assessment.
Can we clap?
Yeah, I was going to pause.
I mean, that's tremendous.
I have in my script, pause for
We were
applause.
taught that we're supposed to celebrate our.
Right.
Correct,
Right, exactly.
absolutely.
Everything.
And I also want to point out, this rate is 4.5 points higher than the spring 2024 third grade test. So our current third graders in the fall are at a higher reading level than our third graders at the end of last year were. Just let that sink in for a
Please,
second, right?
say it again, please.
So our current third grade class in the fall STAR assessment are 4.5 points higher than our third graders in the spring last year. And we still have a whole year of instruction to go. So we're seeing the fruition of the early literacy coming into play right now. The fall STAR urgent intervention rate is 17.6 points lower than last fall, with the rate of 17.3% of the tested students. And our tested students is over 95% for third grade in the urgent intervention grade. And this rate is also 9.3 points lower than the spring urgent intervention, which means we have moved students up significantly, moved them out of that urgent intervention, and a lot of them all the way up in to that proficient range.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted, for when we say urgent intervention, can you just, for a person who's watching this, what does that mean?
So STAR has 4 score bands. They have at or above, on watch, needs intervention, and urgent intervention. So urgent intervention is the lowest score band, meaning that they are at a point of where they may not be able to make it to the level where they need to be by the end of the year.
And so when we show a lower number, that means that more of our kids.
Great place to be. So this graph right here is one of my favorites right now. See that? That's where we are. And this is where we've been the past 3 years. I mean, look, the fall here, how high we were compared to this fall right here. We cut it in half.
Right.
And this like when we first started discussing the early literacy plans and the early literacy tutors, and when we first requested the funds and did all that work, we said it was going to be a long road, and we've passed a few exits now, and we're hiking down that road. So it's exciting stuff.
The full tank.
That's right, full charge.
Full charge. Yeah, it's all right, full charge. For us non-electric drivers. Full tank.
So what's going well? The average proficiency score for third grade students on the STAR reading assessment is higher than the spring results over the past 3 years of data. This indicates that students are starting the third grade with higher reading levels than the past 3 years of students finishing the third grade. The data indicate increased reading abilities in early readers coming out of second grade. Also, I wanted to point out that students in our subgroups of Black students and students with disabilities had higher rates of growth from fall 2023 to fall 2024 than the division average. So those two subgroups also broke the division average. 26 schools had increases in proficiency rates, with the following schools seeing more than a 10-point increase. So all the schools listed there had more than a 10-point increase. Usually I wouldn't do this, but I think it's worthy of reading these schools out loud because of the work that was done. Camp Allen, and the ones over 20, I put the percentages there. Camp Allen had 31.5% increase from last fall. Ruffner, 29.1. Ocean Air, 28.8. Lake Taylor School, 27.7. Willard, 26.7. St. Helena, 24%. Southside STEM, 21.1%. Calcott, Larrymore, Chesterfield, Sherwood Forest, Tanners Creek, Sewell's Point, Richard Bowling, Granby, Larchmont, and Terrellton. All of those schools had double-digit gains from last fall to this fall in the proficiency category.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's still, the data always shows us where we have strengths and where we have needs for growth. And 4 of our schools saw declines in proficiency compared to the fall of 2023, and they're below the division average score. And those are Coleman Place, Lindenwood, Monroe, and Ingleside. And some of those were negligible, but I just wanted to say they did lose some ground from fall to fall. And although the following subgroups showed improvement from the fall of 23 to the fall of 24, their growth is below the division average. So SES, they grew by 11.4, division average was 11.5. So most would say they're at, but just transparency of data. EL was a 5.8% point growth, and Hispanic a 6.3 point growth. And all the other subgroups saw growth above the division average. So I also, on this one, wanted to follow the trend of what we started last year. So we talked about previous action steps and the status of previous action steps. So going into the summer, we had talked about the English office facilitating professional learning to provide instructional coaching support and monitor the implementation of the new 2024 English standards. The English office has successfully facilitated that professional learning on the standards during division-wide professional development days and provided reading specialists with replicable training materials to support ongoing implementation at the school level so that it's not just a one and done, but it's something that continues to go through. The English office will support professional learning, provide instructional coaching on the monitoring of the implementation of high-quality instructional materials and evidence-based literacy instruction. They provided administrators and teachers with comprehensive training on HQIM and EBLI and ongoing professional learning opportunities, including after-school sessions on EBLI and collaborative planning sessions during division-wide professional learning days. Continue to support teachers in effective instructional practices. So I just want to branch out about that one a little bit. When we do our our mandatory professional development days on the teacher work days, all teachers leave with something done when they collaboratively work on it, and that's a part of the planning session that they go through as well. So that was a teacher request, is that we want to leave with something that's applicable in the classroom right away. So we do a lot of planning and material development there. The English office will facilitate professional learning, provide instructional coaching support and monitoring the implementation of Lexia, Core 5, and Power Up, and small group intervention based on data. All schools have participated in success planning meetings with Lexia to review the data, set goals, and plan for instructional coaching support. Reading specialists are provided differentiated coaching and continue to monitor the program's implementation on a weekly basis. And additionally, since this data, which is a few weeks behind at this point, 8% of the students that started the year reading below level in Lexia have already met grade level reading levels on Lexia. Some next steps. Develop and implement and monitor student reading plans that we talked about with the VALs as well, that target interventions and outline clear methods for monitoring and evaluating student progress for select students in grade 3. Monitor master schedules and intervention schedules to ensure that interventions complement core literacy instruction so that we're making sure we're weaving our materials together. Continue professional development for intervention providers, our special education, paraprofessional teachers, and tutors. on evidence-based literacy interventions, provide monthly professional development for teachers on HQIM, and we do that in partnership again with VDOE. And we continue to provide families with literacy strategies, resources, and materials for at-home support. So I'm just going to put the graphs back up there because while we're talking, we might as well have that on the screen.
Okay, board members, you've heard the report. Are there any questions?
So
Mr. Clanton?
we just had this other conversation with the first measure. So as far as the tutors, do we find a direct correlation between in some of these schools that were doing well with those tutors?
So it's correct, it's correlated to the PALS, the early literacy tutoring that's been going on in the past. Those students, the students that were identified as PALS were required to have tutoring, and so they get more intense tutoring, the ones that are struggling the most, and now we're starting to see that gain.
And, okay, so the gray line is the target that we've got,
Correct.
and then the yellow is what the actual data is.
Correct. And with the next one, we'll update the gray line to include our winter and spring target. We didn't have a fall target because we just wanted the fall data to set a target properly because we talked a lot about targets last year as well. So, and this is this was our established target already as when we did the interim measures. So you can see we're really on point.
So, I mean, it just goes back, because I'm using what's not going well. I know you identified that there were the 4 schools that saw some decreases in there. Have you all done a deep dive to kind of find out what was it? Was it staffing? What may have potentially led?
So, with the fall assessment, it's also, we have some transients in our division as well. Lindenwood's a small school, so we have small numbers, 1 or 2 students
Very
can really
transient
alter the data in a school that small. But we are finishing up our first round of data meetings, and this is a heavy part of the discussion in the data meetings about what's been done and what needs to continue to be done and what additional supports are needed. And those come right back through C&I, through school leadership, all the needs that are asked for.
Mr. Clanton, some of those percentages were negligible, like at Coleman Place, it was -1%. And at Lindenwood, it was like 3%. I mean, of course, we don't want to decrease, we want to increase,
Yeah.
but, to keep it in context.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. No matter what, I'd see that this is a big win. It definitely shows that we're going in the right direction. We haven't completely finished yet because, we're still sitting at, 62.1. But we're meeting the targets that we're setting, which is, because if I'm not mistaken, so what is or have they changed that? I don't know, from the state? Is it still 75? What's the?
It's 75 is no, it's all changed.
Right.
It's
just blown up.
It's all changed because
blown
it's
up.
no longer.
All
You brought
right.
your chart?
Right,
No
it's
longer
points now, we're looking at
benchmarking.
points.
It's a
Yeah.
point system.
So it's a
yeah.
400 on the SOL test,
Right.
gives us the
They're going to
point.
be
If they pass the test.
assigned.
Right.
So
yeah.
then that goes into like a larger question for the board in respect, because we set goals against the state's benchmark at a certain percentage rate. And now if they've changed it, then we should probably be looking at, do we need to be making some adjustments to still within the spirit of where we want to be, I don't know above what the state's doing, but what that number looks like.
Yeah.
Following you.
Yeah.
For example, like English and mathematics and science, that's a major part of, what's the first category? The major category that weighs the most.
Instruction.
But
Yeah.
The major category that weighs the most, for example, children will get points based upon them
Mastery.
passing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mastery.
mastery, thank you,
Mastery,
thank
yeah.
you. I don't have my
Mastery,
cheat
growth,
sheet.
and
with that.
readiness.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Got your chart.
So they'll still have to pass that test, so we still need to be looking at proficiency.
Yeah.
We still need to see,
Got it, okay.
trending upward, so
Because
regardless.
Those pass rates are going to be what's
Very-
consistent.
Yeah.
So
It's
I don't think
still-
we need to change.
Yeah, we need to,
Don't need to
I think
change.
keeping our targets where we have right
Okay,
now, and getting to
cool.
that point,
Definitely.
because our pass rate, I don't have the third grade on the top of my head. I think it's like 63%, but I don't have it on the top of my head. But I know 61% was our division reading pass rate. getting that to 75% makes a big difference.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
that's 1.4 points at least on average per school towards the 100 point, you know.
Which is already showing that you're on your way.
Right.
Right, okay.
But for the actual test, the English, let's say that the reading SOL for a third grade, that benchmark for proficiency is, they haven't changed those benchmarks.
So it's still at like a 400
Yes.
is your pass, 400, there's 500 is your pass advanced levels. Those are still the same. What's changing though, since all the new standards are there,
Right.
the cut score we'll see change a little bit probably with a new reading assessment out there. But we'll still have a 400 as a passing SOL score,
Okay.
500 is a pass advanced.
Okay.
But yeah, everything changes now. Everything changes on the new accountability system,
Yeah,
Accountability.
it's still working out.
right?
And the rules are still being made.
You on that committee too?
No, I don't think so. Look, I just
Yes,
asked,
go
just
ahead.
because y'all lost me a little bit, so I just want to make sure I'm with you. So, can you scroll down just a little bit? I'm sorry, scroll up. So right now, the main goal that we are monitoring is the third grade reading SOL.
Right, which is up here.
So, the interim right now that we're looking at is dealing with the STAR
For third graders,
for
correct.
third graders. So, if you scroll,
This way?
yes. So, I guess first I'm just trying to make sure I'm following. So, we were looking at the STAR data, the spring data as being predictive of the third grade SOL data, to the point that our targets for the STAR data are the same numbers that we have for the SOL.
Mirrors it, correct.
Right. So, and that's where I was trying to get to before. So as of right now, we are continuing down the path where we feel that the performance, the spring performance ultimately the spring performance annually on the STAR third grade reading gives us a good sense of how we think the students are going to perform on the third grade SOL.
Glad you asked that question,
Okay.
Mr. Jordan, because yes, if you look, our spring score was 57.6
Right.
for our proficiency, which include add and above
Right.
and on watch. Our spring pass rate was
A little over.
little tiny bit higher than that.
Right.
So that means if we're meeting the mark on third grade, we should exceed the mark on the SOL tests, according to this set of data right now.
Right.
But if we're looking at the ones that we reviewed a few years worth of data when we were coming into this and saying proficiency is at or above or on watch, you see in the data right now that 57.6% of the students scored there, 60% passed.
Right.
So yeah, I would say it's a strong, that if we're meeting this, we're probably going to exceed it with our SOL test scores. So that's why we recommend staying on track with where we
Okay.
are with this.
And so with that then, because we had spring, we had 57.6 spring this year on the STAR.
Right.
And I think we're at 58, 50, so it's kind of been like this. But then based upon what you're seeing, well, let's go back to look at the fall. So based upon what you're seeing in the fall here, then that gives a confidence that we're on a good path, so that the likelihood then of us meeting that spring target, we think is, I mean, we don't know, but we're feeling optimistic about it.
Smiling about it.
Based upon what we're seeing over these trends over the last 2 to 3 years.
And if you look further, last year, we had a 7-point growth.
Right.
If we see that same 7-point growth,
Right,
we're going to exceed our target,
okay,
and we're in a good spot. So, last year when we talked about data and we talked about setting, remember, we talked about when we did the goal setting, and was it too advantageous in some areas?
Right.
It's hard to judge.
Right.
And we knew we'd see some spikes or some flatter lines. Right now, based off the fall data, we're seeing a little bit of a spike. And it's putting us it's setting us up for a good data year with our third grade readers.
Okay, so I get that, and I think that's great. What was throwing me, now, when we were just having the conversation about schools, that was a different conversation about accreditation. That was not about this, right? Okay,
correct.
okay,
Which now is, as we know, accreditation's gone.
Yes.
Accountability is in.
yes,
And
okay.
so schools are no longer being accredited.
Right.
As Ms. McGarity said, already shared the presentation, it's going to be this accountability level.
Right. So I just,
Distinguish on track,
Right,
off track,
correct.
needs intensive.
Yeah, they're
support.
right,
four
so
bands.
I just want to make sure that discussion wasn't necessarily aligned with this goal discussion.
Right.
Because that's what was throwing me for a minute.
Correct. And so, but this goal discussion, though, our reading
Can lead
is,
to-
is
Right.
over 20% in most cases
Yes.
of, of a school's accountability system. So it's still vital. And we also know, based on the research, reading leads to success in many other areas than just
Right.
English language arts.
Right, so going back to what we're monitoring then, that's where I was trying to get it earlier. It's possible that the VALS thing may fall off if we aren't seeing that as predictive. But then when we are monitoring goal one that deals with accountability, it is possible then that some of these things that we're looking here around reading and math may have a predictability in terms of whatever we call that accountability system that we're dealing with goal one,
So it's hard to stretch to any
at least on the elementary school.
Well, and it's hard to stretch to any predictability at this point with it, with where we are with the new accountability system. However, when we put these measures in place, one of the things we talked about with goal one, what we weren't tracking was chronic absenteeism and dropout, which are huge predictors as well. And we knew we're tracking academic measures in goals 3, 2, 3, and 4. So knowing that, we're comfortable in how we're measuring our academics based off that work, but we need to have a focus on chronic absenteeism and dropout rates continued, as you'll see when we start, because I think November 6th, we're slated to talk about the new goal one, and the measures for that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And if I could ask just one final one, then on both of these, on both this one and the previous one, we've had conversations in before about summer retention, summer growth, some talk about summer slide. Considering what you have pridefully, rightfully so, identified here about the spring data versus the fall data, is there anything from the summer activity that you have gleaned that maybe we need to try to continue or grow, that it plays a role in the sustainability from the spring to the fall?
Yeah, so we're working on that now, because we're doing correlations now with summer data, now that we have all the fall data in, and we'll look back at that. As you recall, when we reported last year on summer data, we talked about literacy was kind of flat, so we redid a lot of literacy for this last summer school, so I'm excited to see, did that have an impact in the students where we saw the growth from, spring to fall? Were they in the summer school, all those pieces, we're playing with that right now, because it's still fresh data for us.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Ms. Basine?
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you. That question connects to my question around strategies, and you talked about, where the third grade students this fall outscored the previous year's third grade students. And the one thing that we've had for the last 3 years has been a lot of, we've had federal funds to help support some of the strategies such as the tutors and the things. And I know I've asked this before, but in order to sustain those resources, I know we've included that in our operating budget, but my question is around supporting and sustaining the resources that are working, that are leading to success, and including, we've also had more funding to do more summer programming, which is, what I was also going to ask about, like how that connects and if we're seeing improvement there, so that we're allocating funds to continue the summer school programming that we've been able to do the last few years, because that seems to be playing a role in.
Correct. In
some
local
slot,
budget,
yeah.
there was $2.5 million allocated additionally to summer school to help cover, because the decision was, that we didn't want our students to have to pay for any of the programming that we're doing, because we're seeing some results, and helping them extend their school year in some instances.
Okay. And so with that, were there strategies that weren't working well, that we are shifting away from? And can you speak to that?
Really, over the past 3 years, the strategies we've put in place, I think the way we've been using with our students uniquely, Lexia's been strong. It was so strong, in fact, that's what the VDOE recommended to all divisions across the state. The SIPS program that we started 2.5, 3 years ago with our early literacy tutors, and that we've expanded use of, that has also now been adopted by the state and recommended to divisions. So that's one that we're continuing on with. The way we do our tutoring I would consider it a model. There are other divisions that do it as well, but I would consider it a model for early literacy. So I think where we have the key funding and where we have the key supports for students, absolutely what we have in place is working. There's been software that we've sunsetted, like Achieve 3000. That used to be a big expense for the school
Yes.
division. We've transitioned out of that, and we use Lexia now in its place. And we're ever changing where we see data not coming back favorable. We look at that and we make those changes. So, and that's where we tie it to the budget and the needs that we have.
Okay, thank you. And then, so you rightfully included, the schools where we are seeing, growth, and then a couple where we're seeing some decline. So if you could help us understand how what we're seeing at the board level is, I guess, cascading through the school level. When you're working with each school, do they have specific targets that they know that they have to hit in order for us to achieve this big goal?
So
Okay.
this year, there was a transition from CSIPs to CSPs. So it's now the continuous school support plan. It used to be improvement plan, but now it's the school support plan.
Okay.
And they're required to have goals and strategies anywhere where they're read. And those are also what our data meetings focus on. And also, when we visit schools, we talk about the CSSP, and we say, let's talk about your goals, let's talk about your needs. So yes, the schools are focused on their data specific to their needs through that process.
Okay, and those are connected to also the school improvement?
It is the school improvement.
That
Yeah,
is
the
the,
school
that
improvement,
is the school,
correct,
okay.
correct.
All these acronyms,
Yes,
yeah.
and they change them on us all the time.
Yeah,
so,
okay, so that is the same, so they're school support plans
Correct.
now, okay.
And I think those will be, the first phase of them submitting them is the end of this month.
Yeah, that's what it
And
sounded
then we
like.
start processing, giving feedback to make sure everything's in place.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, I just wanted to add a comment that I know you guys are doing wonderful strategies for the reading, and we're focusing on that, rightfully so. But other things that we have put in place that we've mentioned within the strategic plan are increased recess, strategies for helping kids take breaks during the school day, so that way they can come to school and love being at school and have that good positive energy. And so that excitement may help translate into, better feelings about learning. So while these are the concrete methods, there are other layers to that help to allow kids to, when they sit down to focus, they're ready to focus, versus wiggling in their chair and thinking about what it looks like outside, or that they had a great quality lunch, nutritious lunch that we provide. So I just,
Free every day?
yeah, that's right. So, those are other things that we can't discount, and they are parts of the puzzle.
Whole child.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Point. Else?
My pleasure.
We're gonna just quickly, where's my agenda? Okay, 2.02, we have the monitoring calendar. We've added the Title I funding. I know different divisions say different things. Okay, so the Title I plans, we added the CTE plan and special education plan.
Oh, yeah, the federal grants, special education, CTE, Perkins Plan, also the
Oh, that-
annual gifted update that we did for
Yes,
the
and the
board.
gifted plan. And so,
And then sorry,
Oh, I'm
Madam Chair, we added the bold lines to,
yes, I
as a
saw
request to signify which meetings it would be
To
the
go
first or the
to.
second, and then we changed from red to green.
I saw that. Good choice of colors. And so actually, I asked also to add the non-negotiables because we are scheduled to vote on this on November 13th, 3 weeks from now. So this monitoring calendar will also include the non-negotiables. And that should be a completed monitoring calendar for us to vote on November 13th. Questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
So we'll need it, direction from the board specifically
Okay.
what that needs to look like, because
Okay.
I know the most recent meeting that we had, there was a lot of discussion around that, with some board members wanting, the administration to go in one direction and some in another. So we never got direction from the board regarding what, that needs to look like on the monitoring calendar. So we would really appreciate some clarity
Okay.
around that.
Okay. Ms. Basine sent us an example.
Well, I don't think this is a question of an example of how to include it. I think it's, what she's asking is, have we given direction on, which is,
To put it up there?
So
To
we're clear
include it
on
in-
direction
yeah,
regarding
to
the
include it in the
non-negotiables. We
calendar.
know that in some form or fashion, perhaps, that's what the board wants. I think there was a lot of discussion going back and forth during the last business meeting around what the non-negotiables need to look like
like,
in
okay.
reference to the monitoring calendar.
Gotcha.
So that's what we need direction on, because to us, it was very unclear about what the board expects us to do.
I got you.
Thank you.
I got you. Okay, so what we talked about at the last meeting is how we were going to receive the reports, when we were going to receive the reports. I know on the example that Mr. Jordan shared with us, I wish I had that to show.
Just ask for
yeah.
clarity. Are we
Yeah.
talking about the calendar, or are we talking about the report?
yeah.
Well,
We're
we're
talking
talking about the
We're talking about
calendar.
the
Right,
plan.
so,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
all the calendar, what we currently have on the calendar shows in the left-hand column, it has school board goals, and then it has measures. All we're saying is there should also be a column for the non-negotiables, and it's just the same thing, it's just that the non-negotiables currently right now are not on that calendar. So is there, I don't remember the confusion about, was there
I think
confusion
that-
about that?
I
No,
don't
I think
ever
Dr.
remember us even saying we were gonna have the non-negotiables on the calendar. I remember in the retreat, we talked about what we have right now. But do we have dates for reports of the non-negotiations? Do we?
That's what the calendar, that's what I'm asking. So
They would have to
When we-
populate it.
Oh,
last year, at least last year, when we said we were gonna do progress monitoring, it involves the goals and non-negotiables.
right, but the
And then-
non-negotiables are with the superintendent, right?
But we're
We monitor.
still
we-
monitor them.
We still monitor them.
I think the last report we received was at the,
The board monitors the goals, which are what we
Here.
think students know and are able to do. And then we have the non-negotiables that represent the values. So we don't necessarily monitor the non-negotiables with the same frequency unless we choose to, as we do with the goals. But we do monitor both things. So on the several iterations of the calendar, there were goals. I think you remember me, it was back in March, and I was describing, I was trying to align
February.
the goals with our meetings. And then the non-negotiables, I think was like once a quarter. But both of those are to be monitored. And so the intent is
Who says both of them have to be monitored? Who is the who? It's,
It's just the effective governance.
process for
Best
having the
practice.
goals and the non-negotiables. As part of our norms, we said that we wanted to set expectations around what the students know and able to do.
Right.
And we also said we were going to provide values or boundaries, if you will,
right.
for the superintendent, and then allow the superintendent within those boundaries to go about the business of accomplishing the goals while honoring the non-negotiables.
So that, what you just said right there is what's giving me kind of angst on this one. In your own words, set the boundaries, allow the superintendent to do with the staff, administration team to do what they need to do and come back to us. I don't know if we need the frequency of an every month thing on what guardrails are.
It's not, it doesn't have to be.
Let me finish
yeah.
my statement. What I'm saying is that I would be much more comfortable where we're looking at a mid-year and at the annual when we're talking about the guardrail piece, even if it's in there, because that's when we should be getting a mid-year report.
That makes
And then we should be able to ask the questions of the superintendent based on the guardrails that we have and to be able to provide us with backup data. These are the things that I've done and I haven't infringed upon those. I just don't want us to get over convoluted or what I may see as a micromanaging from the board into what the administration should be doing. We need to stay above our line, know what we're following, and to maintain that. So that's my own piece when I saw this one here, is just to make sure that we're staying above that one, making sure we're laser-locked focused, because I want to make sure that happens. But making sure if we say we're giving guardrails, and it's supposed to be give the superintendent and administration team the space to do what they need to do without infringing upon these, then what really are we saying? We're saying, as long as you're not doing these things, give me a mid-year update, making sure that's not happening, give me an annual.
You're in update.
Yeah, that's where I would be comfortable at. That was my thing.
So I hear you saying monitoring twice a year.
On the guardrail
check
piece,
in.
but I mean, the goals, definitely, we're gonna be doing the calendar all year long, but as far as like guardrail stuff, I just think that
Right.
should be more
But to-
focused, mid-year update, like we really should get that report, more, detail from the superintendent, and then we should be able to look at that, and then when we do the annual evaluation, that's when I would see,
the second part.
the second part of that one, but definitely looking at the calendar with the goals.
Right, and best practices is that that the non-negotiables or guardrails are not monitored with the same frequency as the goals. They should each be monitored at least once,
Yeah.
right?
Same
So,
place.
at least once, but
Yeah.
it's up to us to
Yeah.
determine. And so, and just as an example, like, Dr. Gabriel mentioned, recess and some of the other things that we have said, that we haven't said, reach this goal at all costs, forget recess, forget all those things. It gives us a way to monitor whether we're honoring that value of making sure that our kids have, I'm using that as an example. But by having that check-in that we are, the administration provided us progress measures for each of the non-negotiables last year. So we have progress measures in place. This is just a matter of when we're going to get a report on those progress measures that they identified, whenever those reports are available. And the administration is the only one who knows when those are available. So it's not for us to say when they should be on here. We could say we want each one monitored once, at least once. But whatever progress measures they identified or interim measures they identified for the non-negotiables, the administration ought to know when that data becomes available. So they should be able to put that into the calendar. not for us to put it into the calendar. Like the examples that we shared were just examples, but and they were actually based on what our division has had previously. But this is something I think we've said when we adopted the non-negotiables, that obviously we're monitoring them. And so I think we have given that direction, and now it's just really a matter of incorporating it into the calendar.
So what I'm hearing for the board is how frequent we want to monitor the non-negotiables and what form we want to get them in. Because I know there was talk about if we wanted a presentation or just a report on the updates at the last meeting.
But that,
I think that's the clarity that.
I think that's the clarity Dr. Birdsong.
I
So
don't
what's the,
recall.
what's the-
I would
Yes,
be in
I'm
favor,
confused.
I don't
I would
think
be in
that-
favor of a report, and I like the idea of it having a mid-year check-in and then an end-of-the-year check-in. And
Of the
leave it at that.
non-negotiables.
Of the non-negotiables. And we can put that on the calendar.
Tanya has a perplexed look on her face.
I feel like we're having two different
conversations.
conversations about, we're talking about reporting on one hand, and then I'm talking about the calendar. Each non-negotiable should have a monitoring report brought to the board at least once. We have 5. So if we could spend all day, talking about all 5 if we only picked 2 points in time. So but again, it's up to the administration to determine when that data becomes available. They've already identified interim measures that we've already looked at and reviewed. And so it's just a matter of them incorporating that into the calendar, and then we work it into our agenda planning where we're actually monitoring the non-negotiables.
So I disagree, because my commitment as a board member is to be focused on the goals.
But did you vote on the non-negotiables?
I'm sure I did, but I voted on the non-negotiables as parameters for the superintendent. And so the way that I conceptualize it in my mind is, these are the boundaries of which Dr. Birdsong and her team get to play the game. And if she goes out of the boundaries, then it's out of the boundaries.
How will we know that?
We have 2 times that we check in. We check in mid-year and we check in at the end of the year. If we're trying to set goals and do all of this thorough, high-quality check-in, and then layer on top of that all of the non-negotiables, to me, it causes us to go wide versus deep. And I think it just, to me, the focus for us here in the board meetings is on the goals. We have entrusted her and we have given her the rules to say, whatever you got to do to get to these goals, but just work in these parameters. We have to trust that she is going to honor the non-negotiables. And for me, twice-a-year check-in is fine. I think it's excessive if we start picking interim measure, and then have reports and stuff come in. That's just me personally. I don't feel like I need to have that I don't feel like I need that, number one, as a board member, and then number 2, I don't feel like I need that detailed in a calendar. So that's me.
One up, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah, so I feel like we're having an argument about something that's not in evidence. So there's nothing, right now we have nothing on the calendar that says when we're going to monitor non-negotiables. There's nothing there. So the position that we want to make sure that we're not going to monitor non-negotiables every month is not on the table, because
So I don't
Monitor-
understand what
fin-
Ms. Pacine is asking then, but finish.
on this, right here,
Yeah.
there's nothing up there that says when we're going to get non-negotiables, whether it's a report that goes on the consent agenda or whether we're having a discussion about it. There's nothing there. So Dr. Gabriel, you and Mr. Clanton have said that you like to see the non-negotiables be reviewed twice a year. So let's say the board says twice a year. It still has to show somewhere
Absolutely.
what that is.
Don't disagree.
So that was, to me, was the original question, was about putting the non-negotiables on the calendar. And then it seems now we're having the conversation around what the frequency is, which to me is different from having the conversation about whether or not they should be there or not. Right? You just said your recommendation was a frequency of twice a year.
The two questions that the chair has proposed to the board is, do we put it on the calendar, and when do we monitor it?
Yeah, when do we receive it?
So
Yes.
I think we all agree, we want to put something on the calendar that says when we review it, because
So we
we all
agreed-
voted.
Okay.
We
and
agree
we
it's gonna be on the
agreed to it,
calendar.
So it needs to
Okay.
be on the calendar.
Okay.
And then number two is, how often do we monitor it? And then I guess going into, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Basine, like, how in-depth we monitor it, because I was trying to just pull them up right now on the thing, but, there's the goals, and then there are the little pieces that are attached to the goals.
Talking about the interim goals?
The interims.
Yeah.
The interims.
Yeah.
And so that's where the twice a year comes into play. So are we in agreement of twice a year, or do we need to talk about that? Because we could receive all of the interims twice a year as a report or as a presentation.
Yeah, well, I was just
Yeah.
trying to get to the point of the
Putting it
board
on the
being
calendar.
clear about it should be on the calendar,
Right.
and the board saying to the administration, come back to us with a recommendation on how it should appear on the calendar.
I think if we've given this to the superintendent, the non-negotiables, and it's something that we're requesting to monitor, we set when we want it to be done.
But they know when the data is available, that they've,
So can I use a real example?
Yes, and then I would like to hear from Dr. Birdsong too, because I think this very much involves their work too, but
Of course, I'll just try to get
Yes.
clarity.
yes.
So we have a non-negotiable that says the superintendent will not allow underperforming schools to have low teacher fill rates for prolonged periods or make extensive use of substitutes, low-performing or provisionally licensed staff without implementing a high-impact strategy. So basically, it says the boundary is we don't want to have schools over time that have a disproportionate reliance on substitutes
for
or,
long terms.
right. So right now, we know we'll go into closed session, we get reports. Information is already being given to us monthly,
Yes,
right?
correct.
So this non-negotiable could be on the calendar that twice a year, whatever this sequence is, we have a conversation, we look at it. Might be a report, might be a conversation, I don't know yet. But the idea is that the board is still paying attention to how we are progressing with the non-negotiables that we have established.
I
So-
don't disagree.
Okay, I'm just, that's what I'm doing, yeah, so what's the problem?
So that point, let me say this
I think
quickly.
we're all-
So, like, for example, in our retreat from July 9th, we received a non-negotiable report, monitoring report. And to Mr. Jordan's point, for non-negotiable two, about the superintendent would not allow underperforming schools to have low teacher fill rates and so on. In this chart from our retreat, the report says that the information is not available until fall 2024. So again, that's administration telling us that we can report out this information, but it's not available until the fall 2024. So I think we're all kind of talking the same thing. It's just like Ms. Basine said, administration knows when this information is done. We agree that we want it on the calendar, but just make it very clear to Dr. Birdsong and her administration to determine when we get this information, and we agree on how frequent we just want to come together as a board and monitor it. That's what I'm hearing.
This is how I would like to proceed.
Okay.
Okay, with the board. I would like to take this back to the administration.
Okay.
And we will bring back a recommendation.
Okay.
What would be helpful for me is to get direction from the chair or the vice chair and not additional emails from board members around what the expectations are. I think that's what causes a lot of confusion for me, because I hear one thing during board meetings, we talk about things during agenda planning, and then things seem to change in email, for example, which causes me a great deal of confusion. So if there's behind-the-scenes talking about whatever board members may be discussing, if I can hear that from the board chair and vice chair, I think that would just make things a lot clearer from me than multiple emails about what I need to do, because for me, it just comes across as maybe not the board agreeing to things and giving me direction, which I'm
Okay.
supposed to take direction from the board and not individual board members. That would be so helpful for me.
Okay, so this is what I'm hearing, Dr. Birdsong, from you, that you would like to sit with your team.
Yes.
And bring us back a recommendation.
Yes, ma'am.
On, because we know they're
November.
going up here, but how frequent,
That's right. That's right.
okay.
Yes, ma'am, in November. So you can have it during the work session, so you can take a vote on the 13th.
Okay.
And that meets the timeline that I understand that the board wants to have.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
You hear the recommendation from superintendent?
No objection.
No objection?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, can we have some flex, because all the board stuff's due for the November meeting tomorrow.
Can we, okay, thank you for that.
They're back to back.
Now,
For the
you know,
month
we
of
have this,
November.
this new
Well,
deadline of
let's-
putting things on the, giving them to the board 2 weeks in advance.
Right.
We need a little bit more time with this.
Because
Now,
the
based on
November
discussion
meetings-
today, the things would
Back
be
to back.
due tomorrow, and,
Yeah.
and we won't have time between tonight and tomorrow at 4:30 to discuss this.
Okay.
So we're just asking for a little more flexibility with the timeline.
That's reasonable. That's fine. So let's shoot for December, when is our December meeting? December 4th? What?
December 18th is the meeting.
Or,
Is
I have a
that, is
suggestion.
that what the recommendation is, or is it that we can allow more time before it needs to be posted before the work session?
how much time do you think that you need, Dr. Birdsong?
So, okay, at least another week.
Okay,
That
that's
gives us a
reasonable.
week.
And if we need
Absolutely.
more time, I'll text,
Just-
I'll
just-
email you
I
and
understand.
let you know.
I understand.
You and the
Okay.
board chair, vice
Okay.
chair.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. All right, sounds good. Because
Appreciate
we do have two meetings back to back, the 6th and the
Yes.
13th, I believe it is,
Right,
Yeah.
because of the holiday and
right.
other stuff. Thank you, Dr. Pohl.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we are now about to go into closed session, so may I have a motion to go in closed session?
I move that we go in closed session.
May I have who was second?
Vice President.
Oh, Ms. Basine, second. Can I please read the motion?
Move that members of the school board of the city of Norfolk go into a closed session for the purposes which are set out in subsection A of section 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the school board pursuant to subsection 2.2-3711A1 of the Act. The subjects of this portion of the session are the discussion of personnel on today's regular personnel agenda and the ongoing investigation and possible disciplining of other specific personnel, discussion or consideration of disciplinary and any other matters concerning students in Norfolk Public Schools that would involve the disclosure of information contained in a scholastic record pursuant to subsection 2.2-3711A of A2 of the Act. The subject of this portion of the session is the discussion of students on today's regular student support agenda in consultation with legal counsel and briefing by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation or regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel pursuant to subsections 2.2-3711A7 and 8 of the Act. The subjects of this portion of the closed session are for legal advice concerning the provisions of special education services and legal advice and briefing by staff members in connection with the matters set above in subsections A and B of this motion. Basine?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
And Buffalo.
Aye. We're in closed session. October 23rd. There's a quorum here to conduct the business of the school board. I thank everyone for being here present today and those who are watching from home. So, Ms. Tanner, could you please call the roll?
Basine? Clanton?
Present.
Gabriel?
President.
Jordan?
Here.
Martin?
Aye.
And Buffalo.
President.
Aye. I didn't have the mic on before. Okay, we're going to move to 4.03, Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Green Ortez, would you please do the honors? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will move on to 4.04, Adoption of the Business Meeting Agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the business meeting agenda?
I move that we adopt the business.
May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Basine. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Basine? Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Buffalo.
Aye. We'll move on to 4.05, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Birdsong.
Good evening, Chair Buffalo, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, administration, and members of our community. Good evening again. This evening, we have another exciting video for you, as we do every month, that highlights some of the wonderful things that our children are doing within Norfolk Public Schools, as well as our teachers and staff. And while all of that is important, I want to bring to your attention that within the video, there will be a segment that recognizes two of our schools that are being honored by the Virginia Board of Education. These two schools are Booker T. Washington High School and Terrellton Elementary School. The Virginia Department of Education is honoring Booker T. High School with the Continuous Improvement Award. This recognition is based upon increased student achievement in the areas of reading and mathematics. So let's give Booker T. a round of applause. At Booker T. Washington High School. And Terrellton Elementary School is being honored with the Exemplar Performance Award. This recognition is based on a variety of criteria to include meeting reading and mathematics benchmarks that were established by the Virginia Department of Education, as well as chronic absenteeism targets. The Exemplar Performance Award represents the highest achievement award provided by the Virginia Board of Education. Please join me in recognizing Terrellton Elementary School. And so now I'm asking the communications team to roll the video, please.
Students at the Academy for International Studies at Rosemont were in for a special treat as Sylvia Liu, one of the authors featured at their current book fair, showed up to the school to talk with them about writing.
I love talking to young people, especially about writing and illustrating and creating, because basically I want these young people to see that, they can do it as well. It's to inspire them, really.
I feel like it's really great because it's like a new opportunity for us to get new experiences with authors and books that like with different genres that we really haven't seen before. So I really feel like it's a really unspoken thing because not a lot of kids get to have this opportunity.
Sixth graders from Norview Middle School spent the morning out at Camp E.W. Young learning about the environment and how they can help protect it. Educators from the Elizabeth River Project worked with students on a variety of hands-on experiments, including testing river water, identifying plants and animals, and making a watershed model. For these students, it was a fun and unique opportunity to receive valuable science instruction outdoors.
We love having them out here. It's just great to get kids outside of the classroom sometimes and see the environment up close and personal, see what they're reading about in books and online. Actually being able to just touch and feel and do science outside is great for the kids.
This is better because we get to go outside, field trip, be in nature, and be with your friends and all of that. You get to do it for real.
What's the scoop at Sewell's Point Elementary School? Students collected 400 cereal boxes for a great cause.
So we wanted to do something for the community and something that would engage the kids and the families to come together, especially right before the holidays. So we decided to do cereal dominoes, and we are giving it to 2 local food banks. One is going to be the Southeast Virginia Food Bank, and then the other one's going to be Patriot Pantry, which is the military food bank.
A partnership between Truist Financial Corporation and Samaritan's Feet International allowed students at Willoughby Early Childhood Center to get new sneakers for free. This took place at Joe Eccles Hall on the campus of Norfolk State University.
You know, it takes a village to raise a child, and being at an early childhood center and seeing that the children grow so fast, so just, getting a pair of sneakers could last maybe 5 months up to, 8 months for one particular kid. So one less burden that a parent has to worry about is receiving a brand new pair of sneakers for the fall.
Others from the community who lent their support included Centera, Cox, and members of the Zeta and Sigma sororities. 125 pairs of sneakers were distributed.
The teachers, they're just so pivotal. The school system's so pivotal in their development. So for them to be able to even go one step further and then offer shoes as well, it's a big blessing to all parents, because they're expensive and they keep growing out of them.
Norfolk Public Schools had special visitors from the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense. Russell Collier and Ed Harris toured several NPS schools to see how the district operates and if the schools meet the needs of families possibly deploying to the area from the United Kingdom.
We have a number of families who are going to be arriving into the area, and our job is to look for schools that those families can maybe access for their children. So you imagine moving around the world, it's really, really difficult, and we try and give them as much information as possible to make informed choices about their children's education.
After touring our schools, Mr. Harris has a better understanding of our district.
I think for me, more than anything else, I've got a really good understanding of how much the division and the district and the schools care about their children, not just in terms of the academics, but also in terms of the wider thing about being a child and developing into what we want for all children, which is to be good human beings.
Under the umbrella of our Equity and Excellence Learning Centers, PB Young Senior Elementary hosted a fitness summit for parents. Fitness, which stands for Financial Improvement Tools Needed for Employment, Success, and Self-Sufficiency. This event was sponsored by Rec League and Guns Down.
This is one of our staple events that we do every year, and we just want to bring resources, job, housing, financial literacy to the surrounding area.
If someone doesn't have the information, they can't go forward. If the information is not given, then they don't know which way to go or how to proceed or how to even get what they need to get. And I just feel like if they have the information, it'll be a foundation for them to be able to step up, level up, to be able to be financial stability.
Community Partner Appreciation Night was held at Powhatan Field. Norfolk Public Schools Athletic Department recognized Atlantic Orthopedic Specialists, Centera Sports Medicine, and Eastern Virginia Medical School. Representatives from each were given plaques before the start of the Lake Taylor Granby High football game.
Atlantic Orthopedic Specialists, Centera Sports Medicine, and EVMS are our team physicians. They honor our student athletes through Student Athlete of the Month. They provide us with athletic physicals and provide sideline coverage for our football games.
In addition, 2 Granby High student athletes were also honored. Congrats to Ella Pringle and Dravion Tharrington as they were named Atlantic Orthopedic Specialists Student Athletes of the Month.
In recognition of National Hispanic Heritage Month, students and families came together to celebrate Latino and Hispanic cultures during Crossroads School's second annual Latino Festival. This wonderful celebration featured proud students talking about their cultures, various fun activities, dancing, and of course, Latin American food. The festival was more than just a great party. It gave students the opportunity to share their cultures and backgrounds with others. English as a second language teacher Julie Ulsh believes recognizing Latino culture brings the school and community closer together.
Es importante tener un evento específicamente aquí en esta escuela porque tenemos más de 100 estudiantes aquí que vienen de países latinoamericanos, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Panamá, de todo Latinoamérica. Y además que los celebramos a ellos, pero igual toda la escuela empieza a estudiar, a entender, a tener como más pasión y conocimiento sobre la cultura latina.
It's really fun because not much schools do it, and I'm so glad to celebrate like Hispanics and Latinos. I think everybody comes from different places and they deserve to be like celebrated.
I talked about where Latinos come from and like that their identity is rich, varied, and shaped by factors such as geography, heritage, race, and more. It makes me feel great and just expresses my feelings about what I think about my country.
Congratulations to Booker T. Washington High School and Terrellton Elementary for being recognized by the Virginia Board of Education. Terrellton is one of 92 Virginia schools to earn the VBE's Exemplar Performance Highest Achievement Award, and Booker T. Washington is one of 26 schools to receive the Continuous Improvement Award for increase in achievement in mathematics and reading for 2 or more student groups. To receive the Exemplar Performance Highest Achievement Award, schools must be fully accredited, ensure that all student groups meet state benchmarks in reading and math, while maintaining a chronic absenteeism rate under 15%. Terrellton Principal Kimberly Saunders believes that education is the most powerful and transformative agent of change in our society. This award reflects the collaborative hard work, dedication, and passion everyone has put into our students and school community. The Continuous Improvement Award for Increase in Achievement in Mathematics and Reading for 2 or more student groups recognizes progress in closing achievement gaps across the student population. Dion Garner, Booker T. Washington's principal, adds, "I constantly remind teachers that sound structures, visible teaching and learning, and a desire to help shape the whole child all contribute to this auspicious award." For the complete stories and more information about what's happening in Norfolk Public Schools, visit the NPS homepage and click on the YouTube link.
My video report, but I also have something else I would like to share with the NPS community. On a very sad note, it is with an extremely heavy heart that I share with you the passing of 2 longtime NPS employees, Mrs. April Norman and Mrs. Maria Lourdes Mirador. Mrs. Norman served the school division for 25 years in various capacities. Served as a library media assistant at P.B. Young Elementary School, a clerical assistant, and an administrative secretary. Her affable personality and brilliant smile will be missed by her Norfolk Public Schools family. Mrs. Mirador served the school division for 16 years. served in a variety of capacities within the school division and started her tenure with us at Norview High School as a school clerical specialist. Mrs. Mirador went on to work with the Department of Human Resources as a human resources assistant, and later as an administrative secretary within the Departments of Student Support Services and Student Wellness. She was known for her outstanding work ethic, her good-natured spirit, and she was known to tear up a dance floor. She will be gravely missed by her MPS family. Both Mrs. Norman and Mrs. Mirador concluded their tenure within Norfolk Public Schools as central office staff members. They will both be very much missed and never forgotten. So please join me in a moment of silence as we remember Mrs. Norman and Mrs. Mirador for all that they did to support the children and the staff of Norfolk Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Birdsong. Ms. Tanner, I think you have something you just quickly want to share with our audience.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As we recognize our schools and our students, we also want to recognize you as board members. And VSBA awarded our board members with special recognitions for its annual Academy of Awards, with Rodney Jordan, Tanya Basine, and Tiffany Buffalo receiving awards of distinction. Carlos Clanton, Award of Honor, and award of recognition went to Superintendent Dr. Sharon Birdsong. So give them a round of applause for their professional development. Yes, yes. And also, Chairwoman Buffalo, Dr. Georgiana Filio, Senior Coordinator of Art and Dance Education, and her staff coordinates providing innovative artwork from all grade levels each month for the boardroom and the hallways on the 11th and 12th floors. I'd like to encourage everyone to view, like today, right now, look around the room. You see the beautiful artwork that our students here in Norfolk Public Schools provides.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I'm ready to move on to citizens' comments.
Absolutely. That's 4.06. The floor is yours.
Double check one more time to make sure I'm correct. We have 19 speakers, okay, for this evening. Today's speakers signed up for public comments before the start of today's business meeting. If you would like to provide public comments, you are required to state the agenda item or items or topic you are addressing prior to providing your public comments at this meeting. When your name is called, please come forward to the speaker's podium, state your name and whether you have a child in Norfolk Public Schools, or if you are employed by the district, and state your agenda or agenda items. One person is to speak at a time. If you are representing a group, state the group's name. You may ask your group members to stand in place to be recognized. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes. A timer is set with an alarm that will signify the end of your speaking time. State your position and give relevant data. Avoid saying anything that identifies students or personnel information about individual employees. Personnel, disciplinary, and confidential matters may be addressed to the school board directly via email at schoolboard@npsk12.com. Comments should be addressed to the board and not addressed to an individual member. School board members do not respond to public comments at the time they are given. Any written statements or supporting materials should be given to me, the clerk. So Chairwoman Buffalo, our first speaker for today is Andrea Schindler, followed by Michael Dyer. Ms. Schindler? Okay. We'll start with Michael Dyer, followed by Jerome Ferret.
Good evening. I'm Michael Dyer. I'm a 28-year Navy veteran, a retired Command Master Chief. I currently work at Granby High School, where I have a great school that I work with and a great principal that I work with. I've been there for the past 12 years. I am a teacher. The badge that I use tonight to get into this building says I'm a teacher. The contract that I signed says I'm a teacher. When I'm asked by people out in town what I do for a living, I proudly tell them I'm a teacher. I, like the 11 other NJROTC teachers in Norfolk Public Schools, did not come to become a teacher to become rich. We came here to help young men and women become better citizens of our society. Many of us gave up very lucrative second careers so that we could come here and have the opportunity to impact young men and women. Because like all teachers, seeing our students succeed far outweighs the financial gains of higher paying jobs. I'm not here because I need a bigger paycheck. I am here tonight out of fairness and principle. I'm here to end the discriminatory pay practices towards NJROTC teachers. For the years I've worked in Norfolk Public Schools, there have been 2 other pay and fairness issues that have been solved through persistence of NJROTC teachers and you, the board. I hope tonight that 3rd one will be resolved as well. As you know, the budget that was approved by you and the city of Norfolk gave everybody in every full-time employee 1, 2, or 3-step pay raise, including teachers. I received an email in May saying I would receive a 2-step pay raise, but when I got my contract, there was no pay raise on it. I contacted HR and was told it was because I was an ROTC teacher and because I was off step. I asked who I could speak to, and I was told I could speak to Dr. Agnew Scott and Ms. Clemens. I set up an appointment with them and saw them on June 21st. On June 21st, they met with me and said that they would look into how other districts paid NJROTC teachers and then get back to me. On August 25th, after numerous phone calls and emails to Dr. Agnew Scott, I finally received an email from her telling me that she had reviewed the other pay practices of the districts and found that there was a variety of different ways that NJROTC teachers were paid, but that there was no intent to change the way Norfolk Public Schools paid the NJROTC teachers. I immediately asked for a meeting with her, my boss, Warrant Officer Frett, and our senior naval officer, Commander Littlejohn, who are both here tonight. I was not granted that meeting, but with the help of Dr. Birdsong, I was able to talk to Dr. Agnew Scott again on the 27th of September. At that meeting, I was told there were 2 reasons that I was not going to get a pay raise. 1 was because I was off step, and 2, because raises for NJROTC teachers were not in the budget. Both of these seem like excuses to me to discriminate rather than actual reasons why not to provide us with the step increases that we were promised for all the budget.
Sir.
Dr. Agnew Scott said—
Sir, you can finish your thought. I'm here. You can finish your thought, but your 3 minutes has expired.
So you want me to just stop?
No, I said you can finish your thought. So if you're in the middle of a sentence, you can go ahead and finish that.
Dr. Agnew Scott, I told her that I did not feel these were reasons to not approve a raise, that the raise was approved, and that MPS should actually pays NJROTC teachers less than a first-year teacher coming to Norfolk Public Schools. I appreciate you allowing me to speak tonight, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Jerome Ferret, followed by Liz Schlepper.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jerome Ferret, and I am a teacher at Granby High School. I was hired August 3rd, 2010, after retiring from active duty after 22 years of faithful service. 12 of my 14 years as a teacher in NPS have been phenomenal. I've been offered many jobs over the years. However, I decided to remain in the teaching profession. I stayed because of my love for the students. ROTC teachers have gotten hundreds of students off the streets of Norfolk and into colleges, military, and the workforce. We even contribute to NPS on-time graduation rate, ensuring ROTC students are industry certified and are career ready. ROTC teachers believe we should receive pay raises based on our performance, longevity, just like the other teachers in the district and ROTC teachers in the surrounding districts. In addition to the Navy's MIP, which is the minimal instructor pay by law school districts must pay ROTC teachers. The charter between the Navy and school districts does not cap, nor does it limit the maximum pay, incentives, bonuses, instructors who our teachers can receive. It only dictates the minimal pay by law school districts can choose to pay. ROTC teachers have been treated differently. I personally was denied the educational stipend in 2011 when I completed my master's in human resources, although CTE teachers across the district were paid the educational stipend for having an MBA and not a master's in education. In 2022, ROTC teachers were finally authorized to receive the educational stipend. However, we were not compensated for the years without the stipend. ROTC teachers have been excluded from the miscellaneous payments to all teachers receive for classroom supplies. ROTC teachers have been told the method of placing instructors off step with the salary that is recommended by the Navy has been a long-standing practice with Norfolk Public Schools and other surrounding districts. This is not a true statement. Surrounding school districts do pay ROTC teachers the teacher pay raises along with the educational stipend. I personally know 2 ROTC teachers who left NPS to take ROTC teaching positions in Newport News and Virginia Beach because they received teacher pay raises and educational stipend. In May 2022, I was hired and turned down an ROTC teaching position in Virginia Beach Public Schools, so I know this to be a true statement. A ROTC teacher in Newport News, who is the same rank, years of service, and educational level, and was hired the same year as an NPS ROTC teacher with the same credential, makes almost $25,000 more per year because of his teacher pay raises. NPS only pays 50% of ROTC teacher salaries, which means in most scenarios, the district's out-of-pocket expense for ROTC teachers is less than $45,000 to $50,000 a year because the Navy reimburses Norfolk Public Schools. I pose this question to the board. Imagine giving the students of Norfolk the minimal like NPS pays ROTC teachers. NPS says this is their long-standing practice. Well, ROTC teachers give a lot more than the minimal every day. In closing, ROTC teachers shouldn't be penalized because we serve and the Navy pays half of our salaries. We only ask to be fairly compensated for our loyalty, time, and dedication to the students of Norfolk. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Liz Schlepper? Oh, okay, thank you.
Hello. Greetings, school board members, Dr. Birdsong. I'm Liz Schlepper. I am a previous NPS employee. I taught from 1997 till 2010. I do not have children in Norfolk Public Schools. I'm president of Bike Norfolk, an all-volunteer nonprofit. I am asking today that you dedicate money in next year's budget to pave the way for NPS to apply for a Safe Routes to Schools coordinator. Safe Routes to Schools is a federally funded program that encourages students to safely walk and ride bikes to school. There are grants available for localities like ours to fund a person known as a Safe Routes to Schools coordinator. Norfolk indeed had a coordinator for about 8 years prior to 2022. There was not an application placed to replace this position when the grant cycle came up in 2023, based on my understanding because there was not the 20% match put into the budget. The coordinator works mostly to train PE teachers to in turn train their students about proper safe walking and bicycling. If you're thinking to yourself that you never received training in walking and bicycling, that is kind of the point. Every child walks on a daily basis, and formal training can save lives. Children who ride bikes do so without formal training in the way that we would not expect them to do with other activities like swimming, soccer, baseball, softball. And bicycling and walking have built-in risk factors that other sports do not have, since kids have to make multiple decisions like navigating traffic, intersections, and road hazards. Coordinators also serve to gather stakeholders in the community to further the Safe Routes mission. Back in 2019, Tommy Smeagol, principal of LDS at the time, gathered students who were part of the drama club who also rode bikes. We at Bike Norfolk secured a local filmmaker, and we wrote scripts for the actors who came out with their bikes to produce educational videos about safe riding on neighborhood streets. The coordinator paid our filmmaker, paid for a mechanic to check the kids' bikes, and we as the nonprofit provided the scripts and organized the filming to take place on roads in a safe manner. The result are safety videos that we still use today to share with parents and children about safe bicycle riding. The films also gave opportunity for the actors, these young actors, to display their skills and have a product to add to their portfolios. I'm currently English instructor and department chair at Tidewater Community College. Prior to my appointment, I did spend 13 years in Norfolk Public Schools as an English instructor at Norview High and at Northside Middle. I've spent the last, it says 2 decades, but it's actually 3 decades, in various volunteer roles related to bicycling. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Christy? Liz Albert.
Good evening. My name is Liz Albert. I do not have children in Norfolk Public Schools. I'm here this evening to comment on the school system's Equity and Excellence Learning Centers, which bore the brunt of criticism at the September 18 board meeting from individuals with Virginia organizing. Observing this meeting was a Groundhog Day experience for me because it was a carbon copy of what happened in the past when there was a high-profile initiative of administration that certain board members wanted to disassemble. Like the Lindenwood Elementary and Booker T. Washington public commentary before it, the speakers came from organized outside groups rather than the affected stakeholders. Not one parent, student, or staff member of the affected EELC students spoke at that meeting. That being said, I did want to know if the complaints about lack of community engagement in the EELCs had merit. So I did some research. I have to say I was impressed by the attention to detail and the commitment to surveying school stakeholders to ascertain what each school needs. Besides individual school efforts, there was a district-wide EELC Expo that even provided transportation for families. There have been family meetings at individual schools, as well as targeted enrichment activities for students. Keep in mind this is only the second month of school. I understand the interest in expediency, but if NPS is to do things right, staff needs to strike that right balance between expediency and the research and planning it takes to shape quality initiatives. The impatience that has been shown to date with the EELC seems to me to be a rush to judgment, a rush that most likely has been encouraged at the board level by a trio that is obviously intent on undermining the work of the division superintendent and her leadership team. It seems to me that board orchestration of negativity has ratcheted up recently. For example, I believe Delegate Jackie Glass's bitter criticism of Dr. Birdsong at your June 26 meeting fell in that category. Chair Buffalo, can you tell us you really didn't know that was going to happen? I doubt any intelligent, thoughtful legislator would step forward to ambush school administration without at least giving the board's leadership a heads up. To the 3 board members who remain outside the anti-administration trio, I say this: demand more civility and collaboration from your colleagues. The school board as it operates now is impeding the school division's progress, and that is definitely hurting children. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte Smith Worley.
Good evening.
Good
Chairman
evening.
Buffalo, Vice Chair Gabriel, school board members. My name is Charlotte Smith Worley. I do not have children in Norfolk Public Schools. I am here to address a claim Mr. Jordan made in the October 2nd meeting. Specifically, accused the administration of not having the sense of urgency about addressing student and school needs. As a retired Virginia Beach teacher, there were times that I criticized the size of my administration as competition for investments in teachers. Yet I came to understand their leadership was not competition, but support for us. Without them, chaos would pursue. Unfortunately, Mr. Jordan does not accept this case for an NPS. He seemed intent on being purposely divisive by pitting administration against the schools. Dr. Pohl, who was presenting the update that rankled Mr. Jordan, bore the brunt of the biting criticism. I understand the need for tough questions, but there is a difference between being probing and being insulting, and you, Mr. Jordan, in my opinion, chose to be insulting. Your chief academic officer deemed as lacking a sense of urgency. How professionally embarrassing for him and his colleagues to be described in this manner publicly. Don't you realize the long-term effect what talented administrators are going to want to work here when they see school board members are likely to be portrayed so negatively. I am also amazed at the amount of accountability the board has created. Goals, interim measures, non-negotiables on top of strategic plan goals. No other administration prior to Dr. Birdsong has been put through such a ponderous reporting process. At your last meeting, it seemed that the superintendent was politely saying her team needs to be working with schools more rather than trying to spend an inordinate amount of time defending their existence. The school board should have its own sense of urgency, bringing about clarity to this overwrought process. One has been developed by a vocal minority who has clearly worn down the majority of you. The board should expect division leadership to think creatively about challenges, but NVS climate is poisonous now because with board chair, there is a trio of saboteurs. When was the last time the trio substantially supported administration? To those outside the trio, I beg you to thwart the sabotage, make collaboration your priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Worlds. Nicole Worlds.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I'm Nicole Worlds, and I have a 7-year-old that attends PB Young, and I am here to address the EELC and the various programs that I have attended in the past and I currently attend. And every time when they have the programs available, such as Parent Connections, the FIT program, and other programs that is beneficial to me as well as my son. I attend all of them, and sometimes after school, like when they have after school programs as well. And this Saturday, me and my son will be we're going to DC to attend African American Museum in Washington DC. And my son has stated to me that he enjoys the STEM programs that they have, with the enrichment programs that they have after school. And I am also excited to say that I am on Miss Driver committee after school to come up with other programs regarding the EEC. But I am here to state that I am excited for the various programs regarding the EEC as well as my son. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jillian Parnell.
Hi, I'm Jillian Parnell. I have a 4-year-old daughter who attends Pete B. Young Elementary. I worked at Coleman Place Elementary in the clinic a couple years back until I was paralyzed during a medical procedure, and I could no longer pay my bills. And then we were actually homeless for a while. NHRA helped us get a house, and it's in the PB Young district. And it's an under-resourced and underserved district, and I know that Norfolk Public Schools is committed to providing equity and excellence, but equity isn't equal. So, we need that EELC program. And we've been through trauma, we've been through the homelessness, we've been through domestic violence, we've been through a lot of things. So that program's helping us out a lot. I go to it, but it helps me help my daughter. And not just that, but I went to the fitness program. There was a lot of different things there. They had like financial counselors, state support programs, on-site job prospects, mental health providers, housing specialists, child resources, life and burial insurance, and we also had a science night, which my daughter, Charlie, she loved. So there's a lot of different things that, are very supportive for me as a parent and help me to be involved with her schooling. But also a lot of things that she really enjoys as well. So as someone who's disabled, it really helps me be involved in her education. And I really appreciate that, like the school working with us together. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Candace Driver.
Good evening, Dr. Birdsong, Executive Leadership Team, and school board members. As you have heard from a couple of our parents, they are very much aware of our EELC program and involved in our EELC program at PB Young. Our students are excited to discover their hidden talents and eager to share them with everyone. As a school leader, I want to express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Birdsong and the Executive Leadership Team for your forethought, insight, and support of the EELC programs at the 4 schools. As someone who was a teacher at Bowling Park Elementary School under Dr. Herman Clark, I am fully aware of how a program of this magnitude can have a positive impact on students and the community. Board members, I respectfully caution you to not entertain those people who stand before you and give inaccurate and unsubstantiated information about our communities not knowing about our Equity and Excellence Learning Centers. As you heard from some of our parents, and there may be more to speak to you, PB Young's parents not only know about our programs, they're also actively involved in our Parent Connection program, which is a part of our community engagement piece of the Equity and Excellence Learning Center. Board members, I invite you to do as our superintendent, Dr. Birdsong, has done. Visit PB Young, observe and participate in our Parent Connection sessions. Observe or participate in our after-school enrichment program from 4:15 to 5:15, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of every week, with the exception of the holiday weeks. I guarantee you, you will not be disappointed in what you experience and what you hear. Our students are excited to share with you. Our parents love the programs that we are able to provide for them through the Equity and Excellence Learning Centers, and they're eager to share that information with you as well. My name is Candace B. Driver. I'm principal of Plummer Bernard Elementary School, and I approve this message.
Sasha Simmons.
Sasha Simmons.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sasha Simmons. I actually have 3 children that attend Norfolk Public Schools. But I would like to say that I first heard about the concept of community schools from a group called New Virginia Majority. They are actively involved in the community, Calvary Square, Young Terrace. So I just wanted to put that out there. But my 2 youngest children attend PB Young Elementary School. And as a parent, I'm excited that the school board did listen because I came and I spoke, maybe, I think it was maybe a year ago with the New Virginia Majority to advocate for community schools. To see it implemented, I'm so excited. Some of the other parents who I connect with in the Parent Connection, we have been doing the work to come together. I heard on the video someone say that it takes a village, but if we don't have trust amongst each other, we can't come together. So the Parent Connection is a group that helps us to break down barriers and develop trust between the parents. Not only that, we have trauma sessions. We have being in poverty, being in broken homes can cause trauma, and those things can trickle down to our children. So if I'm not thriving as a parent, then my child can't thrive. So to have these things in the school is actually saving me. It's breaking generational curses that is keeping our children stuck. I'm so excited to be a part of this. Not only that, my son Logan, he loves the enrichment programs. He is so excited to go, and being that it's like, okay, so they have to have like first grade, second grade, so it's like 4 weeks, and he's so sad because he can't go anymore. So hopefully that can be like a year-long thing, hopefully as the program continues, but I'm so excited. My daughter, who's in kindergarten, she has her enrichment during school, and they're actually growing fruits and vegetables. And during the Parent Connection, we as parents talk to the school. They communicate with us. We tell them what we need, what we want to see. And to see the school implement those things, it's just, it's exciting. And I'm going to DC too. I'm so excited to go to the African American Museum because I've never been before. So to have these opportunities is beautiful, and I would like to thank everyone for coming together to bring this together. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Alton Robinson.
Cut his hair off.
That was my daughter. I hear parents come here and they talk about the school board members. And I hear the word equity. I'm quite sure everybody knows the definition of it and the lack of it. And I think about the fact that if equity is lacking, you all are aware of it lacking, that means something needs to be done so that it won't be lacking. So all I ask is that whatever needs to be done, whatever you all can do and should do for the sake of the children, just do it. Just get it done. You're brilliant people. You have great minds. That's why you were elected to the school board. So come together and make it work so that you'll set the city of Norfolk on a pole that everybody in the nation could see, would recognize. We shouldn't be bickering. We shouldn't be calling out people who's on the school board and saying things about them. One people here. One people, then we're going to be one people. So I'm just asking that the school board would change its way of doing things and do what is right and what is good. Because we have students, children, and my grandchildren that's coming up in this Norfolk public school system. And I know want excellency for them. And how can we get it from them when it starts with you? So you guys are the head. So I'm asking you to just do what is good and do what is right. Don't need a rocket scientist to figure it out. Just get it together and do what needs to be done for the people who you serve.
Thank you.
And forgive me if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Visha Rim? Visha Rim? She's coming, Miss Tanner.
Good afternoon. My name is Visha Rim. I'm a mother of three. Two of my children are Norfolk Public School students. I am here speaking on the concerns of Richard Bowler Elementary. I am here on the behalf of my son, who's in kindergarten at Richard Bowler, who was suspended wrongfully, but as of today, his suspension was lifted. I feel like that his suspension was put in motion by the principal because of a prior incident that the school did not communicate to me with the day before. As a working mother, I immediately arrived at the school, and the principal and three staff members were in the office. The principal began to explain the circumstances surrounding my son's suspension in front of others. I felt that this did not protect my son's privacy and not good judgment on her part. Lack of professionalism continued when she chose to engage in an inappropriate exchange of words with me and my mother, who I was on the phone with at the time. Her tone was not what you heard in a professional setting, but disrespectful and argumentative. Then to find out a week later, an advocating mother for her son was banned from the school, which my son was supposed to be put back in school a couple of days later. She continually to provoke parents and attempt to have us banned, to have us look bad. There are many parents in our community who have been spoken to in this way, and if you respond, our characters are being misrepresented to the school board. Thank you for your time and for listening, and that I ask that this be looked into as parents are being banned, advocating parents are being banned from Richard Bowling. Thank you.
Thank you. Barrett Hicks.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Evening.
Mr. Buffalo. And the board. I'm Barrett Hicks, President and CEO of the Concerned Citizens Association, Tidewater Connection. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that does advocacy on behalf of youth and communities. First, I want to say, I've been coming down here for excess of 15 or more years. I think I started coming when Rodney and Dr. Gabriel came on board. I want to say, I heard a little thing, somebody saying that, something about Rodney in the negative. I love your work, brother, in the sense that you look at total pictures versus the picture that's just before you. Thank you for your work. This ELC, again, from what I hear, that's an awesome program. I would love to see it at Southside STEM Academy at Compostela. As we know, they opened the doors in 2016 and haven't been much higher than 10th from the bottom of all schools in the entire state of Virginia over that period. So if you have a program that you're doing that's bringing that type of success where you're getting parents that's saying yes and thank you, we need that everywhere. Find a way to make that happen. Folks, as I said, I've been coming down here a long time. But not much has happened differently over at Southside STEM. Only thing we know is that we have situations where our children are being hurt, and we had one most recently. Child hurt on one of these school buses. Child beat him like a drum. Blood everywhere on this kid, but he was not rendered aid. He was not rendered aid by anyone. And from talking to the parent or the grandparent, this child had actually made an approach to a counselor early in the day. That counselor told him that that she would make sure she talked to both of them before getting on that bus. It didn't happen. unacceptable practices. We have, some of you may know or may not know, there's been 3 shootings in the Camposola community over the last 5 years, where a child that attends Norfolk Public Schools has been either killed or maimed. And Southside, no one comes. No one offers that support for those children. I think somebody, this board, needs to direct Dr. Bergsong and her team to ensure that we're having some form of assemblies or whatever when we have these types of situations for these children. We call them our babies. Treat them like you treat your baby. Bring some support. People. Change the dynamic of what's going on in our communities. It starts with our children.
Thank you. Letitia Woods.
Afternoon. I'm
Hello.
Letitia Woods. I have 2 students in Norfolk Public Schools, and they're totally different students. So one of my children has an IEP meeting, which I just went to his IEP meeting, and it was very intimidating. There was no empathy in the room at all. Nobody could actually tell me what was going on, and we didn't come to a solution. I actually signed his IEP under duress just to get out of the situation. And I also have a daughter. She's in all advanced courses. She has the same counselor as my son. So she wants to get an advanced diploma. So she sent the email to her counselor and asked her counselor, what classes should she be taking? So instead of the counselor giving her the information, she had to go and find the information. And once she got to the counselor, to tell the counselor that she feels like she's taking the wrong classes. She has too many of a certain amount of credits and not enough of the other credits. The counselor had nothing to say. She didn't contact me, didn't contact my daughter. And once I did actually meet with the counselor, she told me that she wasn't there the year that my daughter actually was trying to contact her, or when the incident when my son happened. So there was no answers, no anything. Every question that I had, it was like a blame game, which I don't want to do that. I want to be a team with whoever is working with my children, because that's the only way that we would be successful. So I'm here to ask who is going to help me help my children. Thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine Garcia.
I'm a little short, so I hope this works.
Adjust it how you see fit.
Good evening, school board members, Chair Buffalo, Vice Chair Gabriel, and Dr. Birdsong. I was going to come up here and share a list of a lot of complaints from our community. I am a mother that has 3 children in Norfolk Public Schools at this time. My oldest was attending STEM Academy since 2018, and now he is a LCSE student at Norview. I have 2 that currently still attend STEM Academy, so I hope that what I share doesn't turn into a retaliatory measure. I decided not to share the complaints that the families wanted to have me come up here and share, because I know that there are other ways to go about things. And something that we are doing, so myself with the organization Gear Recovery that I am the founder and president of, as well as the NRHA TMCs, we are working together with parents that their voice has been missing at these meetings. We're working together to corral those resources, getting those our children watched and in a safe space while we are able to attend these meetings, so that our voice can be heard. Because I do think that that's probably what's been missing here at the table, is the voice of the Camposola families and community. So one thing that I want to say is that we definitely need to stop the blame game and get together and listen to find a common ground to come up with the solutions. I wear many hats in the city. I'm a member of the Student Health Advisory Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Norfolk Community Services Board. I'm a health equity specialist at the Virginia Department of Health, Norfolk Health District, as well as a parent representative for Human Services. And I share that to say that I've intentionally been putting myself in those spaces to provide the equity that is missing. And what I'm often seeing is that there's a blame from the school about parents, and of course, parents on the school, but there has not been any bridge to get that connected. And I appreciate that there are the ELC learning centers. My question, because I was a part of that discussion with New Virginia Majority of why the STEM Academy was not one of those schools, because we know that that school has been underserved for a very long time. A lot of people in higher up positions say, well, Compostela has great resources. You have a great school, you have a great pool, and you have a great library. But those are only shells. We're looking for the resources that need to be present. A couple of points that I did want to share quickly are in the bullets of the complaints that we were hearing that are actually concerns, rather, because our children's safety is a concern, are having some safety measures at the bus stops as well as at the crosswalks, because that is still connected to the school. Another thing that I'll try to share very, very quickly is that there is a Spanish-speaking system that I'm aware of. However, the Spanish-speaking community at the STEM Academy is not aware of that system, and we need to be able to reach those communities and provide equity to everyone at the Norfolk District. The Norfolk Public Schools District. Thank you.
Thank you. Jocelyn Jones.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm Jocelyn Jones. This is my first time, so I'm sorry.
Raise your microphone up a little bit. There you go.
Yeah, this is my first time being in an
You're
environment like
good.
this, so
Okay.
excuse my nerves. But I have one child in the Norfolk Public School District, goes to PB Young, and I'm here to share my experience with the Parent Connect. I moved here from Phoenix, Arizona, so it's kind of like complete new territory everywhere. But I've never been in an environment that cared about the parents as much as they did the students. And I really appreciate the group. Like Sasha said, it gives us a chance to connect with other mothers and connect with the school to find that sense of security and support. Specifically with the trauma healing I've been a part of, and it's made a tremendous difference in my life as a mother, as a woman, and I just wanted to share that and hope that it continues. My child is in pre-K, so he hasn't gotten a chance to like fully get an experience of the other like after-school programs and of the EEC. So I'm hoping that it sticks around so myself and my son can continue to grow with the school and find other ways to help us and others around.
Thank you.
Alina Morris.
Alina Morris.
Is that what happened? Our speakers for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tanner. Thank you for everyone who made a comment tonight. All right, so we're going to move on. May I have a motion, 4.07, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I just wanted to verify that the changes have been made to the personnel docket.
Yes, it has.
Okay. All right.
All right, hearing that. Ms. Tanner, call the roll, please.
Basine?
Aye.
Planton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
And Buffalo.
Aye. We're going to move on to 6.01, monthly financial report. Dr. Birdsong.
Chair Buffalo, this evening, our Chief Finance Officer, Cheryl Spivey, will come forward so that she can review our financial report. Thank you.
Dr. Birdsong. Good evening, Chair Buffalo, Vice Chair Gabriel, and members of the school board. As you may recall, at the most recent business meeting, I was prepared to provide you with an amended report for the financial period 2. However, the board made a decision to reschedule the presentation of this report for this evening. I have provided a memorandum addressed to the board with the reasoning and detailed explanation regarding the amended report. I hope you found that helpful. This evening, I will review the amended August report, the September report, and the quarterly grants report. The August report covers 2 months. If you want, Ms. Tanner, if you want to scan up so where the numbers show. Thank you so much. The August financial report covers 2 months for the fiscal year that started July 1st of 2024. The report reflects July through August transactions that were recorded on or before September 5th. As shown on the financial highlights page, the general fund collections for the first 2 months totaled $60.6 million and represent 13.2% of general fund budget. Collections during the same period in the 2 previous years ranged between 10.6% and 13.4%. As with prior years, collections are based on cash collected during the period. As shown on the next to the last line of the report, by the end of August, we spent or encumbered $55.25 million, or 12% of the budget. During the previous 2 years, spending through August 31st ranged between 6.1% and 8.5% of the budget. As shown on the bottom line, actual collections, revenue collections are $5.39 million above expenditures and encumbrances. More detailed information on the spending is available on the following pages. There were no general fund budget transfers exceeding $50,000 during August. Next report, the September report, which is the period 3 report. Thank you. Up for you can see the numbers. Thank you. The September report covers 3 months for the fiscal year that started July 1, 2024. The report reflects transactions that were recorded on or before October 8th. As shown on the financial highlights page, general fund collections for the first 3 months totaled $117.6 million and represent 25.2% of the general fund budget. Collections during the same period in the 2 previous years ranged between 20.7% and 20.8% of the budget. As with prior years, collections are based on cash collected during the period. For expenditures and encumbrances, as shown on the next to the last line, by the end of September, we spent or encumbered $112.36 million, or 24.1% of the budget. During the previous 2 years, spending through September 30th ranged between 14.9% and 19.1% of the budget. As shown on the bottom line of the same schedule, by the end of September, we spent or encumbered $112.36 million, or 24.1% of the budget. During the previous 2 years, spending through September 30th ranged between 14.9% and 19.1% of the budget. As shown on the bottom line, actual revenues collections are $5.26 million above expenditures and encumbrances. As with the first report, a more detailed information on the spending is available on the following pages. Before I go to the quarterly grants report, we need to see if there are any questions on the financial report.
School board members, you've heard the report. Are there any questions?
No.
Hearing none, Ms. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Basine?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Spivey, and I appreciate the memo that you provided us last month to explain the differences between and the corrections that were made, so that was very helpful. In regards to the two documents that were provided, I just have some questions, clarifying questions. So, under, why is my finger not? So, under this September 5th, 2024 report, if you could pull that up, Ms. Tanner.
You said which one?
The September 5th. Yes, so right there, right on the first page.
On here?
Yes.
Okay.
If you could make it a little bigger. The fund balance, so the fund balance program year encumbrances, the 10.6 million. So can you explain or remind me, I probably need a refresher, why we don't see that on the October?
I will.
Okay.
During the period of the first few months of the year, where our encumbrances are, well, we have 2 years open. And the encumbrances in the financial system can only appear on 1 year's report, in the financial system on 1 year. So they stay on the prior year, so the year that ended June 30 of 2024, until we're ready until we're getting ready to close the year, and then those encumbrances close out and they move into the budget, because what encumbrances are, they were encumbered in the previous year, but the goods or services we were unable to procure during that year, they move over that with the budget. The budget moves over with that in the next, as soon as we get close to closing the year. So that's the difference between the August report that was dated September 5th and the October report that, and so in this situation, the encumbrances moved over in the, you said they're not separate. They're not separate anymore. They're the revenue. They're within the revenues of the budget itself.
Okay. So what, if you don't mind explaining, then what would be different between that and then like the fund balance from fiscal year 2021 PIR, which we see on both reports, although one, shows what has been the year-to-date actuals.
Right. On the, so the fiscal year 2021 report, those were not encumbrances. That's money that we didn't spend that year, and the state allowed us to bank that money until we could use it for purposes of prevention and intervention and remediation. So we budgeted those funds this year, so they weren't related to the encumbrances.
Okay. All right, I think I understand. So those were not previously spent, so that's why they're, okay. And then, do we have, this is around the time of year that we usually, or that we've, through our funding formula with the city, that we would get our first estimate. Have we heard anything about
You are correct. It's about the time. We have not received that first estimate from the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And do you have, by any chance, the final amount of what our fiscal year 24 reversion fund amount is?
I don't, as we're in the process of doing our accruals right now.
Okay, thank you.
Jordan?
Sorry, just one, and forgive me if this is what was described in the memo and I just didn't catch it. On the current report, the increases that we've seen with the on the state side, compare, on this report compared to the previous report. Can you just re-explain what the?
I can. If you recall from, so we adopted a budget, and only like less than a week before that, the state amended their budget. So trying to not rush and make decisions on how to spend that money, we waited until, we adopted the budget that we had, had been presented, and we waited until July to make those adjustments in the, from what the state adopted. And as you pointed out, the revenues were different. In fact, as far as the state revenues, I believe the standards of quality revenues went down, but our at-risk went up. And so that's what's making most of the difference. So we got those budget entries. So we had the amendment that was approved in July. It takes a while to get that into the financial system. So for the month of September, we made those adjustments. So it changed the revenue and it changed the expenditures.
So just so I can repeat it back my way. So the amendments that we made as a result of the state adjustments are reflected from this report going forward, but they were not reflected in the previous report because they hadn't been calculated in yet. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, may I have a motion to approve the September 18th and October 23rd, 2024 monthly financial reports?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval.
May I have a second?
Second.
Subject to audit, and that was Dr. Martin? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Basine?
Aye.
Lanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
And Buffalo.
Aye. 6.02, resolution to transfer Madison, Dr. Burke. Oh,
I
Did the grant report.
still have the
oh,
grants
we have the
report.
grant report.
Yeah.
Moving along, okay. I
Thank you.
apologize.
No problem. The next report that we'll be reviewing is the quarterly grants report. I'm excited to present this report. As of September 30th, $251.3 million of grants were in process, of which $193.2 million was spent or encumbered. The 99.1% of the $152.5 million with end dates of September 30th or December 30th has been spent. The date of the closeout period for grants with an end date of September 30th is November 15th. So there are, even though we have a 0.9% left to spend, we expect that a number of these grants will come down to zero once we do all the reconciliations and the final reimbursements. And you've had the report. If you have any questions on the report, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Well, Ms. Spivey has presented the report. Are there any questions?
Well, I appreciate your last comment because that was going to be my question about some of the areas where we have some unspent funds with expiration dates of September 30th. So you're saying, if I heard you correctly, that we have until November 15th technically to spend that, and you expect that we will have expended all of the funds that we've been allotted?
For some of the grants, we believe, we know that the money has been spent.
Okay. And are there areas where you know, already know that you will not be able to spend all of, for those grants that you're referring to?
Have information on those, yes. And these are two grants that we've talked about as, you know, as the year has progressed. The first one, the first one shown that has expired, the educator recruitment grant, and so you know, that was one of them. We had 14 applicants for that recruitment grant, but none of them qualified for reimbursement of the grant during the grant period. So
We had 14.
We did have the applicants, but they didn't, you know, were not able to follow through.
Okay, so none of them qualified is what you're, okay.
The other one is the incentive payments for instructional positions.
Okay.
Although we were unable to spend all of the money, we did have 82 teachers who qualified for those bonuses, and they received $5,000 each. And they were all of the teachers that met the requirements of that grant, and so it did benefit 82 teachers.
Okay. Okay.
And those
Those were the two, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Spivey. Okay, can I move on to 6.02? All right, Dr. Birdsong.
The board should have received the two resolutions of the school board for the city of Norfolk. We'd like to relinquish all control and responsibility for the Madison Alternative Education Center as well as the Coronado School. We presented the two resolutions to you for your approval.
I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay, that was Dr. Gabriel and second by Mr. Clanton. Are there any questions? Ms. Basine?
Just a comment.
Okay, and then Mr. Jordan has a comment.
If he'd like to comment,
Mr. Jordan, you want to comment first?
No, I was just going to mention with the transfer of Madison Alternative that I don't know what we are still calling the alternative program that we have, but I just want to suggest that we don't continue to call it Madison moving forward. That's all.
Building.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Basine?
Yeah, so I guess mine is a comment and consideration. And we've talked about this over the years that I know that I've been on the school board. But when we do return, school buildings back to the city, it would have been good to have some discussion about how we might put parameters around that so that whatever revenue that is garnered from the sale, economic development, or repurposing of the building or the property, that it is used to benefit the students of Norfolk Public Schools. And I don't know how and if that was a discussion point in consideration of this resolution, or if that's something that we can amend the resolution to say, even though I know we can't make anyone do any, we can't make them do anything, but I think to at least have our advocacy around finding ways to have greater support, for our schools and our students, I think is something that we should think about, because I know down the road, as we embark on our educational planning activities, that we are going to have other buildings that may be considered for consolidation or closing, and I think these should be part of a broader discussion. So I just want to put that out there.
Good point.
All right, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'd just like to say that I concur with my colleague in the respect of there have been some ideas that have been floated around the sale, once we return these things, if the sale of that property would go to school construction. I know that Councilman Smeagol has brought that up. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the City Council will have their budget retreat in November 18th. I think that a broader discussion potentially for us is to talk about the educational planning at some particular point, because I am interested as to when we'll probably get the report for the community engagement component about the discussion around the schools, and as a part of a larger package to talk about the funding way forward with those potential savings and looking at Norfolk Public Schools if we can't come to an agreement, just like what we have with the funding formula about so we may have several schools that may potentially be coming back. So I would agree in that respect.
Well, I'll say this, if either you or Mr. Jordan serving on the city council, then remember that point. So I had a
Don't call the question on you.
Is there any other discussion or comments around this? All right. Ms. Tanner?
Basine? Aye. Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Buffalo.
Aye. Well, we have come to the end of our agenda, everyone. Just a reminder to the school board, we'll come back together again on November 6th and November 13th. Okay? So with that said, this meeting is adjourned.